Squirrel Girl. If you've ever met someone who proudly says, "My favorite Marvel hero is Squirrel Girl," you've probably seen the mix of admiration and confusion on everyone else's faces. Doreen Green. Yes, that's her actual name. First popped up on Marvel Superheroes Volume 2, Number 8. She talks to squirrels, climbs walls, and somehow defeats villains way out of her weight class. She's half rodent, all optimism, and has the power to make hardcore fans mutter, "You've got to be kidding me." Her 2015 series, The Unbeatable Squirrel Girl, by Ryan North and Erica Henderson, turned that absurdity into a philosophy. Instead of brooding in alleys like Batman's anxious cousin, Doreen solves problems by talking. She negotiates, empathizes, and occasionally unleashes a small mammal army. She's beaten Magneto, Kang, and even Doctor Doom multiple times. The whole thing is meant to be joyful chaos, bright art, meta jokes, and energy that screams Saturday morning cartoon meets philosophy major. For some readers, she's the lighthearted hero comics desperately need. For others, she's a walking acorn of irritation. Spider-Ham. Then there's Peter Porker, the spectacular Spider-Ham. If this is your first time seeing this guy, yes, that's real. He debuted in Marvel Tales number 1 in 1983, and the premise is as unhinged as it sounds. A pig gets bitten by a radioactive spider and becomes a hero in a cartoon universe full of animal puns. He throws pies instead of punches and fights villains like Doctor Doom. His stories feel like watching Saturday morning cartoons after 3 bowls of sugary cereal. Fun for a bit, but your brain starts begging for vegetables after issue 3. Spider-Ham made a comeback in the 2019 miniseries, and reactions were pure level 1 energy. People either said, "This is brilliant," or "I'm too tired for this." Critics called it clever, others said it felt like a running joke that refused to leave the party. But that's the charm. He's a punchline with a cape, or webs, and he knows it. Level 1 hate is basically the comic fandom version of a sigh with love in it. Nobody's throwing fits online, they're just rolling their eyes while secretly reading the next issue. These characters are not breaking continuity or ruining childhoods, they're just weird little mascots for the crowd that thinks comics can be silly. So yes, Squirrel Girl talks squirrels into saving the day, and Spider-Ham exists in a world where bacon jokes never end. They might not fit everyone's taste, but they keep things interesting. And honestly, if a talking squirrel or a porky Spider-Man ruins your day, maybe the real villain was your sense of humor all along. Wolverine. There's a special kind of comic book fatigue that hits when a character starts showing up everywhere. And I mean everywhere. That's the level 2 zone, where love turns into a please take a nap, and nobody embodies that better than Wolverine. Logan first popped his claws in The Incredible Hulk number 180 back in the mid-70s, and from that moment, Marvel said, "Cool, print 10,000 more of him." He was a mystery man with claws, a cigar, and permanent rage issues. Basically the comic book version of that guy who says he's an introvert but somehow ends up in every group photo. By the time giant-size X-Men number 1 rolled around in 1975, Wolverine was locked into the mutant scene for good. What started as an edgy loner became a franchise mascot. Through the 80s and 2000s, Marvel made sure Logan was in every lineup imaginable. X-Men, Avengers, solo runs, crossovers, and sometimes multiple versions of himself at once. He died, came back, got cloned, lost his memories, found them again, probably died another 2 times, and kept swinging those claws like the Energizer Bunny with anger issues. Fans didn't hate him, they were just tired of tripping over him. You'd open a random comic and boom, there's Wolverine again, glaring, bleeding, or philosophizing about honor. The dude was unavoidable. Deadpool. Now slide that same fatigue into clown shoes and you get Deadpool. Wade Wilson first showed up in the New Mutants number 98 in 1990, and his shtick was gold at first, with sarcasm, fourth wall breaks, and enough one-liners to make Spider-Man sweat. But then Marvel realized Deadpool could sell anything. By the 2000s, he was everywhere. His own ongoings, team-ups like Cable and Deadpool, tie-ins, specials, variant covers, you name it. He became the kid who won't stop talking in class, even when everyone's laughing out of exhaustion. Deadpool's problem isn't that he's bad, it's just that he's too much. The constant meta-jokes and self-aware chaos were hilarious in short bursts, but once they spread across 20 different titles, the magic started to fade. Fans either devoured every issue like fast food or rolled their eyes at yet another Deadpool kills titles. Even critics began saying the quiet part out loud. When every joke is about being overused, maybe take a hint. Wolverine's overexposure feels like a marketing strategy gone feral, while Deadpool's feels like a meme that went corporate. Both started as fresh, fun ideas, gritty loner and meta manic, but years of overuse turned them into Marvel's version of comfort food. Easy to sell, impossible to escape. Level 2 hate isn't about betrayal, it's about being smothered by too much of a good thing. So yeah, Wolverine's been on every superhero team and Deadpool's probably made a joke about it. Level 2 fatigue means fans aren't angry, they're just begging Marvel to take a deep breath and maybe, for once, publish a comic that doesn't have claws or chimichangas in it. Because at this point, even Wolverine's healing factor can't fix how tired we are. Cyclops. Cyclops is the guy in every group project who insists on making a spreadsheet, color-coding the plan, and then wonders why everyone hates him. He started as the dependable X-Men field leader, steady, polite, and constantly stressed. But over the years, Scott Summers went from the teacher's pet to militant general, and that transformation is where the fanbase split in half like a bad breakup. Some say he finally grew up and took responsibility. Others say he turned into Magneto with extra homework. It all boiled over during X-Men Schism in the 2011 event when Cyclops and Wolverine basically had the superhero version of an office meltdown. Wolverine wanted to protect the kids. Cyclops wanted to train them for war. Their argument got so heated it literally tore the X-Men apart, spawning two separate teams and a decade of fans still fighting about who was right. Some cheered Scott for adapting to a brutal world. Others booed him for forgetting Xavier's dream and acting like a mutant drill sergeant. Then came 2012's Avengers vs. X-Men, where everything went nuclear. Literally, because the Phoenix Force showed up. Cyclops believed the Phoenix Force could save mutant kind, but his leadership went off the rails fast. One bad thing led to another until he was blasting people with godlike power and murdering his mentor Charles Xavier. Fans couldn't agree if he'd become a tragic revolutionary or full-blown villain with a guilt complex. Even after AVX Consequences tried to unpack the fallout, the debates didn't stop. For some, he was a freedom fighter. For others, he was the reason they stopped inviting him to mutant dinner parties. Magneto. And while Scott's out there running mutant boot camp, Magneto's over in the corner saying, "Welcome to the club, kid." Magneto has spent decades doing the moral limbo between villainy and visionary. He's either starting a war or teaching ethics, depending on the week. His story hits harder because it's rooted in Magneto Testament in 2008, where his Holocaust backstory gives him his worldview painful realism. Readers who see that side often called him justified, a survivor trying to make sure his people never face extinction again. But the second he goes too far, wipes out a city, or leads yet another Brotherhood of Evil Mutants reunion, these same readers go, "Okay, Granddaddy, chill." That's the beauty and chaos of Level 3 hate. It's not rage, it's debate. Cyclops and Magneto don't make people yell, "This is stupid." They make people write essays. Whole Reddit threads exist dissecting whether Scott's tough love or Magneto's ends justify the mean stance was right. The arguments never end because both sides have a point, and both sides are convinced the others are morally bankrupt. So yeah, Level 3 isn't about being annoying or overused. It's about being decisive enough to turn comic fans into political theorists. Cyclops is the straight-A student who snapped under pressure. Magneto is the history teacher who took learn from the past way too literally, and both of them need therapy more than another crossover event. Beyonder. Every comic fan has met a character who starts out cool and mysterious, then suddenly turns into a walking disaster. That's the Beyonder in a nutshell. When he first appeared in Secret Wars #1 in 1984, he was the ultimate cosmic question mark, an all-powerful being who plucked heroes and villains from Earth just to watch them duke it out on a Frankenstein planet called Battled World. It was weird and fun, and of course big enough to sell a mountain of action figures. The idea worked because the Beyonder wasn't human. He was unknowable, like if the universe itself decided to run a social experiment and forgot about ethics. But then Marvel tried to make him relatable. In 1985, Secret Wars 2 decided that this godlike entity should come to Earth and learn about humanity. And by learn, they meant wandering around in a mullet and doing sitcom-level nonsense like falling in love, getting a job, and wondering why mortals are so weird about money. The mysterious cosmic force was suddenly acting like a lost exchange student from space. What made him scary in Secret Wars 1, that sense of untouchable otherness, evaporated the moment he started whining about feelings. We fans went from awe to awkward laughter real fast. Then the retcons hit. Marvel kept rewriting what the Beyonder even was. One decade, he was a universe. The next, a fragment of some higher species called the Beyonders. then suddenly part of a Molecule Man therapy session. The constant redefinitions turned him into a grand mystery into the comic book version of an essay that keeps getting edited until no one remembers the thesis. What started as a brilliant what if God played with action figures premise became Marvel's biggest how did we end up here? Now, if the Beyonder was a cosmic mess, Onslaught was a psychological one. He debuted in X-Men number 53 in 1996 as the ultimate what-if monster. What if Professor X's bottled up anger and Magneto's violent ideology fused into one psionic nightmare? It was genius on paper. Two of Marvel's most powerful minds mashed together, symbolizing everything broken about mutant politics. But then the crossover machine kicked in, and suddenly Onslaught wasn't a layered metaphor, he was a glowing red blob yelling about domination across 50 tie-in issues. The event spiraled into chaos. Heroes died, universes rebooted, and by the end, nobody knew what Onslaught wanted besides page space. His original purpose was exploring Xavier's dark side, got buried under explosions and marketing, and what's worse, Marvel quickly undid half the consequences anyway. The story that was supposed to be deep and tragic ended up feeling like an over-budget fireworks show. That's level 4 in action. The great pitch, terrible follow-through zone. The Beyonder could have been a haunting cosmic riddle. Onslaught could have been a gripping character study. Instead, both became proof that too many tie-ins can drown any good idea. In short, these two villains went from mind-blowing to migraine-inducing, and honestly, if the Beyonder ever comes back again, he should probably start by retconning his own haircut. Sentry. Some characters feel like they were born in the writer's room during a meeting that went too long. That's Sentry. When Paul Jenkins and Jay Lee dropped the Sentry #1 in 2000, Marvel introduced Robert Reynolds as a forgotten superhero with the power of 1,000 exploding suns. Cool premise, sure. Except the hook was that he'd secretly existed all along in Marvel's history, erased from everyone's memory. Marvel basically said, surprise, he's been here the whole time, you just forgot. It was an audacious pitch that instantly triggered reader side-eye. At first, it seemed clever. A lost legend rediscovered, a mystery wrapped in gold spandex. But the longer the Sentry stuck around, the more the seams showed. His backstory was like a terrible group project that everyone kept editing. He was an ancient hero, then a lab experiment, then a schizophrenic god, then something else. His whole deal of the constant retcons, the split personality with the void, and the inconsistent power levels made fans feel like the universe itself couldn't decide if it wanted him to be Superman, Dr. Manhattan, or the world's most powerful sad guy. What's worse, each new writer tried to fix him by adding even more contradictions. Eventually, the meta joke became that the Sentry didn't have lore, he had patch notes. And it's not like fans hated him out of nowhere. They were frustrated because he felt inserted. He didn't grow into the Marvel world, he was copy-pasted into it. Every retcon tried to make him feel like he belonged, but it only made readers more aware that he didn't. The sense that the character was forced in from top down is what makes him pure level 5, an editorial experiment that kept rewriting itself until everyone wanted to uninstall. Ben Reilly. Now, if the Sentry was Marvel's cosmic retcon headache, Ben Reilly was its street-level migraine. In the 1990s Clone Saga started as a fun idea of what if Spider-Man's clone was still alive, until it turned into a never-ending identity crisis fueled by sales charts. Ben first appeared way back in The Amazing Spider-Man #149 in 1975 as Peter Parker's clone, then reappeared in the mid-90s wearing a hoodie calling himself the Scarlet Spider. At first, fans were intrigued. But then Marvel dropped the bomb. Actually, Ben is the real Spider-Man and Peter's been the clone all along. What could have been a short emotional arc became a marathon of rewrites, fake-outs, and moments of, wait, who's the real one again? Editorial kept stretching it because sales were good and the story bloated until even Spider-Man needed a flowchart. We fans weren't just annoyed, we felt betrayed. Peter Parker, the character we had followed for decades, got sidelined for a copy in what felt like a corporate stunt. The Clone Saga didn't break hearts, it broke patience. Level 5 resentment lives in that space, when creative chaos turns into editorial overreach. The Sentry made readers question continuity. Ben Reilly made them question why they were still reading. Sam Wilson. You can tell a fandom's about to go to war when a character picks up a new weapon. That's exactly what happens in 2014 when Steve Rogers hands over his shield, and suddenly Captain America was Sam Wilson. On paper, it made sense. Steve was old, depowered, and tired of punching fascists in the face since the 1940s. Sam stepping in was a perfect legacy move. Same ideals, new perspective, and wings for days. But the internet did what it does best and melted down fast like ice cubes in the hot sun of Texas. Half of the crowd celebrated a bold new take on America's hero, while the other half acted like Marvel had replaced apple pie with avocado toast. The early issues of Captain America Sam Wilson leaned straight into real-world politics, like border control, racial tension, and media spin. Nick Spencer didn't write Sam as Steve Rogers 2.0. He wrote him as a man juggling patriotism and identity in a country that wasn't always kind to him. It was honestly smart, topical, and messy in all the right ways. But some readers didn't see a story, we saw a statement. To us, Marvel had gone political, and Sam's run became a lightning rod for the Eternal Comics argument, keep politics out of my superhero books, said people who apparently skipped the issue where Cap punched a Hitler. On top of that, Marvel marketing hyped the move like it was a social milestone, which made even neutral fans suspicious. Was it heartfelt evolution or a corporate diversity checkbox? Either way, the shield suddenly weighed a lot more. Jane Foster. Jason Aaron's 2014 run started when the classic Thor lost his worthiness, literally couldn't lift his own hammer after a cosmic whisper, so a new Thor appeared. Mystery surrounded her until the big reveal, it was Jane Foster, wielding godlike power while secretly battling cancer. I'll be honest, the duality was tragic and poetic. Every time she became Thor, the magic wiped away her chemo treatments. It was the kind of storytelling that could make you tear up mid-page. But once again, the internet's rage factory fired up. Some readers praised the arc as a fresh and emotional spin that gave Jane agency and depth after decades of side character status. Others treated it like a corporate coup. They'd be screaming like, they made Thor a woman for politics. The backlash got so toxic that creators and fans defending the story were harassed online. Ironically, the comics themselves weren't waving a flag because they were about loss, sacrifice, and what makes someone worthy. But that didn't stop the culture war crossfire from making Lady Thor a trending insult for months. Level 7 resentment lives in that exact chaos, when readers aren't arguing about what happened, but why it happened. Sam Wilson and Jane Foster weren't failures, they were flashpoints. Their stories worked as narratives, but fandom turned them into debates over identity politics. And if there's one thing we learned from all that, never underestimate how mad people get when someone else picks up a fictional hammer. Paul Rabin. There are villains, there are nuisances, and then there's Paul Rabin, a guy whose biggest crime might be existing in the wrong comic at the wrong time. And yes, this level is for him only. If you're asking why, well, why not? When Zeb Wells kicks off The Amazing Spider-Man Volume 6 in 2022, readers met Paul as the son of the Emissary, a survivor from an alternate Earth who, through time dilation shenanigans, ends up living for years with Mary Jane Watson. Sounds sci-fi cool, right? Except by the time Peter Parker returns to the main universe, MJ's got a new guy, 2 kids, and 0 interest in rekindling things with Peter. And just like that, Paul Rabin went from background dude with an unfortunate haircut to enemy of the fandom. We didn't just dislike Paul, we rallied against him. People weren't mad at him so much as what he represented. Another forced break between Peter and MJ after years of emotional investment. Reddit threads roasted him daily, calling him the most hated man in the multiverse, while YouTube reviewers treated him like a symptom of a creative disease. What made it worse was that Paul wasn't given much of a personality beyond guy who's there. He had lore, sure, alternate Earth, apocalyptic background, spooky dad, but emotionally, blank slate. No charm, no wit, no standout trait beyond being the dude MJ chose instead of Peter. Then came the details that made everyone's brains melt. The kids he and MJ raised, illusions, the time gap that bonded them, 4 years that passed in an alternate world while only moments passed in ours. On top of that, Peter's return didn't lead to closure or a heartfelt reunion. It led to awkward tension and more confusion about why MJ was even with Paul in the first place. Fans read it as Marvel using multiverse mumbo-jumbo to justify breaking one of comics' most iconic couples again, all while handing MJ a new love interest nobody had time to care about. By the time all-new Venom number 9 dropped in 2025, MJ finally broke up with Paul, and the reaction was basically a parade. Articles literally called it a relief, and fans online treated it like the end of an ex they'd been hate following. It wasn't just satisfaction, it was catharsis. Paul didn't die a hero, nor did he live long enough to become one. He just became the face of every frustrating editorial move that prioritizes shock value over earned storytelling. So now Paul Rabin sits at level 7, which I guess we could call the fan rage symbol or continuity wedge. He's not evil, not iconic, and not even intentionally funny. He's the accidental punching bag of an entire fan base, cursed to represent a breakup no one wanted and a subplot no one asked for. His story didn't break the multiverse, but it sure broke the comment sections. That's it for this one. If you liked the video, hit that like button, subscribe for more, and ring the bell so you never miss a drop. Craving more stories from comics, movies, and beyond? Check out this video right here. Cheers and see you in the next one.